You see, comfort is about what pleases me, what makes me happy, what makes me, what's convenient to me, what's easy to me, what's in the moment right now that brings me that happiness. In that moment, God is not necessary. God doesn't have to be there for me to sit on my couch with my coffee and scroll through all the different projects that my wife sent me that I'm not going to do, right? But faith is about what pleases God. God is essential. We have to believe in God. God has to be there. He has to exist in order for us to show faith. We are to have faith in God and demonstrate this faith by going out into the world and showing His love and His kindness. Paul wrote to the church of Corinth in the book of Corinthians. And he's talking about how once you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, once you've recognized that He has sacrificed His life for you and that He is God, he mentions that your old life has gone and your new life is here because you are called to follow after God. You're called to be Christ-like, right? You now have a purpose, right, which is going to be fulfilled through God and through you. And so he states in 2 Corinthians 5:15, He, as in Jesus, died for everyone. Not the person that you like at the coffee shop, not your coworker, or maybe not just the person that cut you off on the way here, but everyone, right? Anyone. So that those who receive His new life, meaning if you accept Him and you accept that new life, will no longer live for themselves. Instead, they will live for Christ, who died and was raised for them. Did you know that your faith in God could be the key to unlocking someone else's new life? Taking a moment to face the uncomfortable, to have that moment of discomfort, that conversation could allow others to experience God's love for the first time, one true everlasting love. So many of you may be looking and saying, all right, I get it. Comfort is temporary. It's not something I would pursue. But what is this faith thing? Why is it pleasing to God? And why does it cause me discomfort, right? Shouldn't getting closer to God bring me more comfort? Shouldn't it allow me to experience greater things? Well, yes, but not in the way that we would put in our own mind or not in the way that the world would tell us. And the great thing about the Bible is that when you start to look for these things, it immediately starts to provide answers to these type of questions. In the book of Hebrews, and not as like somebody who like makes coffee, but Hebrews, as in the people that were basically following right after Jesus has sacrificed His life, right? These are Jewish people who are stepping into Christianity for the first time, right? A lot of these people knew who the Messiah was. They accepted that they were Jesus Christ, had existed, and that He died for them, but they were not living their life as if He did. Sound familiar? See, in Hebrews 11, it goes on to say, great examples of faith. And it starts by saying, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. It goes on to talk about that by faith, Abel brought an offering that was more acceptable than Cain. Noah was convinced that there would be a flood and built a boat when there was no rain. Abraham left home to occupy a promised land. He didn't know where it was or even if it existed. Sarah, who was barren and old, believed that she would have a child. Joseph, on his deathbed, spoke of the exodus of Israel from Egyptian slavery. And Moses, who had a strong speech impediment, was used by God to face down Pharaoh. None of these things were easy. None of these things were comfortable. And every one of them required faith in God to show up and do an impossible feat, right? They had to overcome something. Through this verse, they actually single out a section that's somewhat unknown person in the Bible, at least I think if you're reading on a regular basis, which is a gentleman by the name of Enoch. And Enoch was raised to heaven without dying. He just disappeared. The reason he, quote, disappeared without dying was because God was pleased with Enoch. When it starts talking about Enoch and why he was so pleased, it starts talking about his specific faith in God. And it goes on in Hebrews 11:6 to say, "And it is impossible to please God without faith." Enoch was so full of faith, did everything he could to follow, to seek, to pursue God, and to have faith in God, that he rose him, allowed him to disappear, and brought him straight to heaven. And anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. When we think about what this world tells us, and we start to believe that living our best life means that we need to be comfortable, means that God isn't necessary, right? It starts to be in direct contradiction to what the Bible clearly shows us. If you look at the human experience throughout all 66 books of the Bible, you will find there is not someone who is straight comfortable that makes a difference for God. Is there comfort? Yes. Are we way more comfortable than they were? Yes. But does that mean that they didn't have faith? Does that mean that they didn't step out in faith and make a difference? They did. And it's up to us to continue that on. So let's ask a question. What areas in your life are you completely helpless unless God shows up? To ask it a little differently, is there any area of your life where you are helpless unless God shows up? You see, many of us believe that we can do it on our own, that we can just go off in a corner, we can work at it ourselves, we can maybe even just disappear into a different world in our comfort, and it'll just somehow pass us by, and everything will work out. Craig Groeschel, who wrote the book Christian Atheist, is well known and quoted for saying, "Stop insulting God with your safe living and small thinking." We have to get outside of this idea of being comfortable. We have to get outside of this idea of safe living, and we have to start thinking bigger. We have to pursue a life of faith, one that is full of God and not one full of comfort.